It's just wrong.
Did auto insurance companies made profit in 2020 or they returned, gave back to the drivers?
They made a record profit.
So what is the relation between government and insurance companies? Why don't they give back to the consumer?
So we have to ask ourselves this question. Did this regulatory authority, FSRA, fulfill its mandate? Have they been doing this? In fact, is there transparency?
Premier Ford has that guts, he can get it done. So maybe before the elections, we all have to see on that.
Rather, what we see is the opposite. What we normally see is regulations restricting what accident victims can receive. So it is a real problem, and maybe, now election time is the time to put auto insurance at the forefront of the public debate. How they took our money and invested it and made money on the investments itself. The continued gouging and the continued record-making of profits, a windfall to the insurance industry. Right now, in terms of how this government is dealing with auto insurance, it seems like they're listening and waiting. Brokers and insurance companies to tell people, hey, you know what, if you get injured and you don't have this type of benefit, you're not going to have this type of coverage. Stop that and allow insurance companies to make a profit, certainly, but not to the extent that they've been allowed so far. They exaggerate it. This is the reality.
Okay, but it's absolutely on our radar, 100%.
ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਟਾਕ 'ਚ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ। ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਨ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਆਟੋ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ। ਪੈਂਡੈਮਿਕ 'ਚੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਨਿਕਲੇ ਹਾਂ, 2020 ਦਾ ਸਾਰਾ ਸਾਲ ਸਾਡਾ ਪੈਂਡੈਮਿਕ 'ਚ ਗਿਆ, ਤਾਂ ਕੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਡਿਮਾਂਡ ਸੀ ਆਟੋ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਬੜੀ ਅੱਛੀ ਓਪਰਚੁਨਿਟੀ ਸੀ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਆਟੋ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਦੇ ਰੇਟ ਘੱਟ ਕਰਨ, ਬਿਕੋਜ਼ ਕਲੇਮਸ ਬਹੁਤ ਡਾਊਨ ਸੀਗੇ ਔਰ ਸੜਕਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਐਕਸੀਡੈਂਟਸ ਬਹੁਤ ਘੱਟ ਸੀਗੇ, ਲੋਕ ਵਰਕ ਫਰੋਮ ਹੋਮ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ। ਸੋ ਆਟੋ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਕੰਪਨੀਜ਼ ਨੇ ਕੀ ਉਹ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਰੇਟ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਘੱਟ ਕੀਤੇ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੇ, ਔਰ ਕੀ ਕਰਨੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਸੀ, ਔਰ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਫਿਟ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਅਰਨ ਕੀਤਾ, ਕੀ ਰਿਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਕੰਪਨੀਜ਼ ਔਰ ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਦਾ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਹੈ ਇਟਸ ਅ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਓਪਰਚੁਨਿਟੀ। ਸੋ ਕਾਫੀ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਓਪਰਚੁਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੈਨੀਫਿਟਸ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਗਏ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਕੰਪਨੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਫਿਟ ਕਮਾਇਆ, ਕੀ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਕੰਪਨੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਫਿਟ ਕਮਾਇਆ ਕਿ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਟਰਨ ਬੈਕ ਦਿੱਤੀ, ਸਾਰੇ ਤੇ ਡਿਸਕਸ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਨਨੇਸ਼ ਕੋਟਕ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਫਾਊਂਡਰ, CEO ਐਂਡ ਲਾਇਰ ਹੈ ਕੋਟਕ ਲਾਅ ਤੋਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਆਟੋ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਦੇ ਮੁੱਦੇ 'ਤੇ। ਨਨੇਸ਼, ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਐਂਡ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦ ਸ਼ੋ।
Thank you for having me on again.
Nanesh, issue is of auto insurance. Did auto insurance companies made profit in 2020 or they returned, gave back to the drivers?
I tell you something, not only did they make a profit, they made a record profit.
Okay.
To the extent of 27.6% in relation to premiums billed. Now, their regulatory authority, FSRA, the Financial Services Regulatory Authority, mandates that their profit should be 5%. So we're talking a profit ratio of more than 5 times the expected norm. And you couple this with the suggestion that maybe there were some rebates and help given to Ontario drivers in terms of premium rebates. In fact, that wasn't really the case. Premiums actually went up in 2020 by $198 million.
So Nanesh, premiums went up. There were very less claims. The claims got down on 50%.
That's right.
Accident rates were very less. So what is the relation between government and insurance companies? Why don't they give back to the consumer?
Right. So the provincial government has formed a third-party regulatory authority, the FSRA. Part of FSRA's mandate. Now they have a few mandates. One of those mandates is to promote public confidence. Another one is to promote transparency and to approve auto insurance rate increases. So the government gives this to FSRA. Their role is, in fact, to really regulate the insurance industry, approve premium increases and set regulations, etc. So we have to ask ourselves this question. Did this regulatory authority, FSRA, fulfill its mandate? Have they been doing this? In fact, is there transparency? Is there public confidence? Or are there significant gaps? In my opinion, I think there's significant gaps there. And this, we have an election in 2022 coming up. Often auto insurance premiums become an election-related issue. There's no question that the insurance industry has a big lobby. They have a lot of money. They're not the little guy, they're the big guy. So it is very difficult, I find, for politicians, in any party, to really substantially regulate profits that are made by the insurance industry. Rather, what we see is the opposite. What we normally see is regulations restricting what accident victims can receive. So it is a real problem, and maybe, now election time is the time to put auto insurance at the forefront of the public debate.
Nanesh, you are quite right whenever elections come, because auto insurance is one of the main issue, and next year is the elections. Let's see what the government do. Do they announce anything? Because we have a clip here in which Premier Ford said, I have a number of CEOs of insurance company. If they don't do their way, then I will do it, get it done my way. We'll see a small clip here.
The first part is with the auto insurance. I got all the CEOs on the phone and I let them have it. And all of a sudden, they dropped the rates about $1 billion. But it's still, what I feel, they're discriminating against people based on their area code, where they're living. I've asked the finance minister, I had a conversation yesterday with him, to go back at the insurance companies and go after them again, because it's not fair. Why should someone in Scarborough or Brampton pay more than everyone else? It's just wrong. As far as I'm concerned, these insurance companies are gouging people. They are. How can you pay more if you live out, for example, in Brampton, than you would in Etobicoke? It's unfair. So we have a whole group together, round table, and we're going to make sure that we hold them accountable and lower prices. But I'll be able to get back to you on more details. Okay, but it's absolutely on our radar, 100%.
Nanesh, as we saw in the clip, you were right, Premier Ford has that guts, he can get it done. So maybe before the elections, we all have to see on that. Since your office, your law firm deals in the auto insurance too, accidents also, what is your office, your law firm's prediction, what is the result in 2020? How many cases you got? Is there less of the claim of auto insurance, or there were the same patterns which were in 2019?
Right. So certainly we know there are less vehicles on the road in 2020 during the lockdown, and this trend will continue into the future. We also know that for a third of 2021, we were under a complete lockdown as well, except for really essential services. Things started opening up, in April time. The trend now that we see, obviously, is cars are becoming safer, and which is a fantastic thing. You've got automatic stopping on most vehicles that are the new vehicles, no matter what caliber of that vehicle is. We have people working from home. And even now, with the pandemic hopefully ending, you're going to see hybrid relationships, in the sense that you'll see employers allowing employees to work partially from home and partially from the place of employment. So of course, you're going to see a significant decrease in claims into the future. The test is this, and we haven't seen it so far: are auto premiums going to reflect the decrease in claims that we're going to see, obviously in 2021 and into the future, or are they going to continually be allowed to make record profits? Their profits, $3.63 billion. That's just profit on premiums earned. That for auto insurance. That doesn't include their investment income, how they took our money and invested it and made money on the investments itself.
Nanesh, the Deputy Prime Minister said that COVID was a political opportunity. Do you think insurance companies also went the same way, that was a political opportunity? COVID was not a political for them, that was a business opportunity? Because you said they not only made profit, they made a record profit. So that was a COVID, many businesses, they consider COVID as a business opportunity, whereas on the other contrary, the businesses like restaurants and entertainment industry, they were badly hit. Other side, the insurances, whether it's a home insurance or a business insurance or an auto insurance, they made record profits.
There's no question any corporation, anybody out there in business should be entitled to make money. They should make a profit, or there's no point in running a business. So having a profit is not the issue. But what they received was what I would call a windfall. It's like they won the lottery with the pandemic. Not their creation, the pandemic happened, but they were able to gain a windfall as a result of it. And instead of reducing rates, instead of giving more money back to the consumer, instead of opening up fair benefits, which we haven't had since the Wynne government, and I want to get into that as well, instead of doing that, and that would be something the government needs to do, not the insurance industry, but that's something the government needs to do. What we saw is the continued gouging and the continued record making of profits, a windfall to the insurance industry.
बहुत लोग वर्क फ्रॉम होम कर रहे, गड्डियां सड़कों ते नहीं सीगियां, लॉ फर्म्स जानदियां कि उन्हां कोल कोई भी ਜਿਹੜੇ केसेस एक्सीडेंट्स ਦੇ नहीं आए, क्लेम्स ਜਿਹੜੇ है फैक्ट्स एंड फिगर्स है, स्टैट्स है कि ਜਿਹੜੇ क्लेम्स है वो 50% डाउन होए है। आ सारे ਦੇ ਚੱਲਦੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕੰਪਨੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਕਾਰਪੋਰੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਨੇ ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਬੈਨੀਫਿਟਸ ਲਿੱਤੇ ਹੈ, ਗ੍ਰਾਂਟਸ ਲਿੱਤੀਆਂ, ਇਨਕਮ ਲਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ, ਉੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਫਿਟਸ ਹਨ ਕੀਤੇ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਕੀ ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਫਿਟ ਦਾ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਵਾਪਸ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵਾਪਸ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ? 2022 ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰੈਡਿਕਸ਼ਨ ਕੀ ਰਹੇਗੀ ਕਿ 2022 ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਓਨਟਾਰੀਓ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ, ਔਰ 2022 ਚ ਕੀ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਕੰਪਨੀਆਂ ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਨੂੰ ਘਟਾਉਂਦੀ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਘਟਾਉਂਦੀ? ਨਨੇਸ਼, we are discussing auto insurance profits. Can you explain us what were the cuts during the Wynne government here in Ontario, or there were no cuts during that time?
Right. So between 2010 to 2017, there were 17 cuts to benefits that injured victims receive. Now, in Ontario, we have two systems that give rise to claims. One is the no-fault, which is accident benefits, and that you have income replacement benefits, which have been fixed at $400 a week as maximum since 1998. It hasn't gone up. Okay. We have medical rehabilitation. We have potential attendant care. Now, under the Wynne government, they reduced the money available for medical rehabilitation to $3,500 for almost, I would say, 80% of injuries, despite the fact that people believe they're paying for more. They reduced the amount of medical rehabilitation and attendant care for catastrophic claims, the most severest of injuries. It used to be $2 million, they reduced it to $1 million. That may not seem like much, but imagine if you have 24-hour care and treatment, what that in fact is going to cut. They increased the statutory deductible. So to get any money for pain and suffering, not only do you have to prove your injury is permanent and serious, it's lasting forever and affecting your life in a significant way, they raised the deductible to $38,000, going up by inflation. Now it's over $40,000. Okay. That's a deductible to pain and suffering. They haven't raised any benefits you get. That doesn't go up by inflation. But the deduction you get for pain and suffering, not only do you have to meet the threshold of proving permanent serious impairment, but you've got this massive deductible. And this was all during the Wynne government. And juxtapose this. Look at this. 2017 to 19. Those 3 years, premiums went up by 20% during those 3 years. That's under the Ford government. Now, Ford didn't cut anything. The Wynne did enough. I mean, there was enough damage done under that government to reduce what people are entitled to. So under the Conservatives, during the last term, there have been no cuts. There was a promise to increase catastrophic benefits back to $2 million, but that was never done. Okay? So there's sort of been a standstill right now in terms of how this government is dealing with auto insurance. It seems like they're listening and waiting.
Okay. So, ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਇੱਕ ਮੇਅਰ ਬਰਾਊਨ ਦਾ ਕਲਿੱਪ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਟੋ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੈਂਪੇਨ ਚਲਾਇਆ ਹੋਇਆ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪੈਟੀਸ਼ਨ ਪਾਈ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਸਿਟੀ ਆਫ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਦੀ ਵੈਬਸਾਈਟ ਤੇ। ਇੱਕ ਮੇਅਰ ਬਰਾਊਨ ਦਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਕਲਿੱਪ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ।
As you know, auto insurance isn't regulated by the city of Brampton. It's regulated by the province of Ontario. When I was in the provincial legislature, I advocated to end postal discrimination in auto insurance, to the point that I put it in my platform when I was the provincial opposition leader, the People's Guarantee. And that commitment to end postal code discrimination, I felt, was an issue of equity and fairness, and is why I fought for it provincially. I've continued that fight here in Brampton. There are a lot of communities, whether it's Scarborough or Markham or Brampton or North Mississauga, that are really unfairly treated when it comes to auto insurance. And I don't believe we should allow these big insurance companies to charge whatever they want. I think there needs to be measures of accountability like we see in other provinces. So ultimately it's up to the province. I know that a local MPP, Garatan Singh, passed a motion calling for the end of postal code discrimination. Another MPP nearby in Milton Parm Gill passed a motion, but ultimately it would be up to the provincial government to act upon those two private members' bills and do the right thing. And we're going to continue to lobby for that.
Ninesh, we saw all the leaders. We saw Mayor Brown, we saw Bonnie Crombie, we saw Premier Ford. They are vocal on this issue. They also agree that it's very unfair for Ontarians that insurance we are paying very high. My question is, how you compare, like in British Columbia, there is an insurance ICBC, which is governed by one government body. In Ontario, we have privatized, we have many insurance companies. What is the difference? Which is more beneficial to the consumer? Is that format is better, or is the Ontarian, the insurance companies like Ontario, we can shop around hundreds of companies and get where we get a cheaper rate, or there should be one umbrella like ICBC, which is more convenient for the consumer?
In my opinion, having more options is always better.
Okay.
Because you can compare coverage, you can compare pricing, you can buy multiple products. You can buy your home insurance, your disability insurance, your critical illness the same time as your auto to get a package deal. We know, for example, when there's one authority, for example, and let's say it's a public system, so WSIB, I'll be frank, there's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of delays, a lot of stagnation that occurs in WSIB claims when you've got the government running things. So conceptually, I think the better way is to have competition, but at the same time, there has to be some sense of fairness on behalf of the insurance companies that, look, make your money, but not excessive profits that are happening. And there has to be understanding on the part of our government. Stop enacting laws that take away rights of accident victims so they cannot receive proper treatment, they cannot receive proper and adequate income replacement benefits. Stop that and allow insurance companies to make a profit, certainly, but not to the extent that they've been allowed so far. But otherwise, as between the two systems, I think having multiple sellers is better because theoretically you can compete with the prices between each company.
Okay. Ninesh, my question is now, what factors do insurance companies, they watch, they determine before finalizing the auto premiums? What are the main factors?
You know, this is something that's so secretive that even I would have to guess.
Okay.
Because FSRA does not tell us what was submitted by the insurance companies to justify their rate increases. One could assume they're looking at claims, the cost of fixing cars, they're potentially looking at regions where there's more accidents, where there's younger drivers, where there's new drivers. You know, they could put together all kind of statistics. But we don't know because they don't show it. And FSRA doesn't show us the information they receive from each insurance company. So it's really difficult to guess. You know what? They talk about fraud. Insurance companies try to say, oh, there's fraud. Maybe there's more fraud in this region or that region. Well, prove it. If there's fraud, any fraud is bad. It needs to be stamped out. I think we can all agree on this. But if you're saying it's pervasive and it is causing the rate increase, prove it. Show us where the fraud is. Show us how much it costs. Don't just throw a paintbrush across and label it and then justify it, because they can't. They exaggerate it. This is the reality.
So person sitting in Kitchener, Kamloops, Cambridge, they are paying less insurance premium than person sitting in region of Peel. So you are quite right that many people, they give their address as which is a fraud again, living here in the Peel region but giving address of a Niagara Fall just to save the premiums on that.
This was a big mistake to do this because you might end up with very limited coverage, a cancelled policy, and ultimately greater premiums. So I think that would be a big mistake to do that, for sure.
But 25 to 30% of newcomers, when they see our insurance rates are very high, they find their relatives in those areas, they just give their addresses of that area and getting, they are saving their premiums into that.
You know, it's unfortunate that they'd be desperate enough to do that because the ramifications of doing so are catastrophic. They ought not to do it.
So is that also the reason that relationship between government and the insurance companies, we are not aware? That's why we are paying higher insurance?
I think there's certainly a lack of transparency in terms of what information insurance companies submit to the regulatory authority to justify its increase in premiums. We don't see it. We don't have a chance to criticize it. No one has a chance to analyze it, to question it. So I think you know, in a democracy like ours, to have that such lack of transparency when it comes to auto insurance and premiums is very, very unfortunate.
ਓਕੇ ਸੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕੋਟਕ ਲਾਅ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਛੋਟਾ ਕਲਿੱਪ ਕਿ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਸਰਵਿਸਿਜ਼ ਉਹ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ
Most of our clients who come through our door who are suffering from mental illness, they're feeling a sense of despair and a longing for help. Often, insurance companies are denying disability claims on the basis that there's insufficient medical evidence. We've represented hundreds of clients who suffer from anxiety or depression. We fight for our clients' right to receive the compensation they deserve. If you've been denied long-term disability, don't give up. We can help.
Your long-term disability firm, Kotak Law.
Nanesh, thank you very much for coming and discussing this one of the important issue which is concerned with every single individual. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਸੋ ਆ ਸੀਗੇ ਨਨੇਸ਼ ਕੋਟਕ ਲਾਅ ਤੋਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਆਟੋ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਦੇ ਮੁੱਦੇ ਤੇ ਆਟੋ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜਿਆ ਹੈ ਕੀ 2022 ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੱਟਸ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਮ ਕੱਟ ਹੋਏ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੋ ਸਵਾਲ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਪੁੱਛੋ ਆਪਣੇ ਐਮਪੀਪੀ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਲੈਕਟਿਡ ਰਿਪਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟੇਟਿਵ ਹੋਇਆ ਸਵਾਲ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਪੁੱਛੋ ਕਿ ਆਹ ਮੁੱਦਾ ਪਿਛਲੀ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਸੀ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਪਿਛਲੀ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਸੀ ਚਾਹੇ ਉਹ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਵੀ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦਾ ਹੋਏ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਆਹ ਪਿਛਲੀ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਸੀਗਾ ਤੇ ਫੋਰਡ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਕੰਜ਼ਿਊਮਰ ਵਾਂਟ ਮੰਗ ਕਰਦਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਟੋ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਸਾਡੀ ਘਟਾਈ ਜਾਣ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਕੰਪਨੀਆਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਫਿਟ ਰੈਕਡ ਪ੍ਰੋਫਿਟ ਕਮਾ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਉਮੀਦ ਹੈ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਅੱਛਾ ਲੱਗਾ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ ਫਿਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਗੈਸਟ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਰੂਬਰੂ ਜਲਦ ਹੋਵਾਂਗੇ ਤਦ ਤੱਕ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਰਹੋ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਏਸ਼ੀਆ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਈ